This is all described in these teachings in the notes you've got. And this is really the substance of what you're doing. In the third step, we use the visualization of the Buddha. We visualize certain things, Vajrasattva, and we say his mantra, which is said to what gives it power. And we can talk more about that. Any of these practices bring the Buddhas in because of the power of enlightened beings. They're said to be much more potent. But the real practice is this psychological process of going through these 4 steps. It is a psychological process. It's your mind, basically, doing various things. So the first step, the first R, if you like, is regret. The second is reliance. The third is the remedy. The fourth is resolve. Just an easy way to remember the 4. So let's look at what this means, what you're actually doing, okay? The first one, regret, is really important to understand how it isn't what we would think of, which is guilt. We have guilt, and because it's based upon an assumption of victim, of poor me, not fair, then it's this very kind of dualistic, unhappy feeling and it's basically internalized anger. It's beating yourself up. It's blaming you instead of blaming someone else. It's basically anger. And this is not valid. It's just not appropriate. It's awful. It's horrible. And one time one person asked His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, the difference. And it's a very simple way he said it. The difference between this regret that we're discussing and the guilt. So basically, he said, if you're guilty, you look into the past and you think, well, I did this and I did that and I did this. And then you think, the second thing you think is you conclude, I'm a bad person. And that's what we know. We know this deeply. We go to it instinctively. It's very hard to even hear it because it's so automatic. So we really need to consciously change it, and that's what we're doing in this first step. So regret, as His Holiness put it so simply, the first one is the same. You look in the past and you say, I did do this and I did do that and I did do this. So you can say that's being accountable. You recognize things that you did that were negative based upon, that have harmed others. You acknowledge this. But then the second part is different. Instead of thinking, oh, I'm a bad person, which is what we get stuck with, and just feel more miserable and more hopeless. We then take responsibility and we think, okay, what can I do about it? And this makes the hugest difference. And it just takes time to change it. So the first step, the one of acknowledging, when we have guilt, we run to always blame ourselves. We always point out our faults. Each of us in this room, we would blurt, with friends, we blurt out our bad things. To ask what your good qualities are, we're almost embarrassed. We don't even know how to say them, but we run like a magnet to the negative ones. And this really is the irony of ego. As we talk about it, we'll see it so clearly. We're addicted to seeing ourselves badly. But at the same time, we have this other one where we try to hide it. We can't bear to think of it. We can't bear to take responsibility. We can't bear to acknowledge that I did this and said that, We'll do everything to avoid that. So this first step is really a powerful one of simply acknowledging the bare bones fact of things that I have done with my body and my speech to harm others. And if we're really humble, we all can admit we've all done something, So if the simple way to do it is just use the list of 7 no negative actions of body and speech as your reference point. And so the typical way to start this would be, will you think of anybody in this life you'd regret? And we'll go through it slowly. We'll do it like this. You'll see. And you think, well, yeah, I've killed. And I killed that baby maybe when I had an abortion. I killed I killed the rats. I killed the roaches. I killed the mice, or whatever we killed. Maybe some of us, we've been fishing. We killed the mosquito, whatever, sentient beings. Buddha would suggest that all sentient beings have Buddha nature. All sentient beings have beginningless minds. All sentient beings don't want to suffer. And all sentient beings want to be happy. And this is the basis of wanting to not harm them. And of course, as we've just discussed, an action of harming the mosquito or harming the mouse or harming the, whatever, is out of, usually from a delusion. I had an abortion when I was 23, not out of love for the baby, because it was inconvenient to me. I was attached to my baby-free life, I didn't think of it very deeply, but that was very clear. It was not out of compassion for the child. It wasn't out of compassion for me. It was just inconvenient. I'm trying to put myself down. It was a simple fact, So I had an abortion. I killed a child, let's say, a baby. From the Buddhist point of view, it becomes a sentient being. The consciousness enters into the egg and sperm, usually at the time of conception. So from that second, it is simply a sentient being. In my case, of course, being in my womb, it wasn't a dog or a rat. It was a human, So that's called killing. So you regret that. And so this regret, it takes time to cultivate it, because it's what it is really. The best way to say what it should feel like as we develop it wholesomely is when you regret, let's say, eating poison. You immediately, oh my God, what an idiot. I can't believe myself. I ate poison. Quick, where's the doctor? You don't have to agonize about it. You don't go, oh, I ate poison. I'm a bad person. And you get sick every day, and you're dying, and you keep thinking, I'm a bad person. You don't think this. And why? It's very simple. This is the point about karma. You know immediately that what eating poison means is it'll harm you. And hey, you don't want suffering. This is the basis of regret. It's not guilt. It's not even compassion yet. Don't worry about compassion yet. It's not compassion for yourself. It's the simplest way to put it. And it takes time to cultivate this, because right now we do understand very easily that eating bad food will harm me. But driving too fast and crazily on the freeway, I'll kill myself. So that's what sustains us. That's what prevents us from eating bad food and doing dumb actions, because it's very simple, because we don't want to suffer. Don't feel bad about that. That's very reasonable. And you've got to have that first. You've got to have a very healthy wish not to suffer. It's like compassion for yourself. It's the best way to put it, you know. So we shouldn't think, oh, you know, that just sounds like selfish. Don't be ridiculous. We've got to be we've got to be wise, sensible. We've got to first recognize, this is the fundamental point Buddha's making, recognize this fact that he says, that everything I do and say and think brings consequences to me. It's so clear, you know. We get this so beautifully when it comes to food. Look at us. We're geniuses at knowing which foods we should and shouldn't eat. We all are brilliant at it. That's the same awareness that we should have about things that we call morality, instead of this guilty, bad, hiding, shameful way that we see it, which is the default way we are now. So it really does take time to change our attitude, so we can have this healthy recognition of the simple fact that yes, indeed, I have done actions with my body and speech that have harmed others, which indeed were probably based on delusion, anger, resentment, hurt, depression, jealousy, attachment, you name it. Join the club, people. We're all in it. It's called samsara. So it's a really very wholesome first step. Very hard for us, but so necessary. This is the starting point. The reason we want to acknowledge and regret having done bad things is because it will harm me. We've got to get this point. We've got to hear this. We've got to kind of take that on board. Then we will be happy to regret. We want to regret anything we've ever done wrong. We're so delighted, because the way we think it through, which I'll do, is you thinking, I regret this because I don't want the suffering that will come from these seeds I've planted in my mind. So it's so wholesome, you know. It's a healthy, self-respectful thing to do. We've got to think about it, because it's not how we think now. So that's regret. And of course you regret the things you can remember, and then you might as well regret anything you don't remember, but all the seeds are planted anyway. So you might as well regret anything you've ever done since the beginning of this time, to kill, lie, steal, this, that, blah, blah, because I don't want the suffering to come from those seeds I've planted in my mind. This is the first step, the doorway into it. The next step is, well, you think, well, whom can I turn to? Quick, where's the doctor? That's obvious. And of course, here, the doctor we're talking about is the Buddha. He's the doctor we're discussing here. He's the doctor we're using here. And this is the best way to describe one's relationship with the Buddha in the use of these practices. In these practices, is using him like a doctor. He's not our creator. Of course, you know, if you're a Buddhist, you develop this devotion in the Buddha, this devotion in the Lama, you know. That takes time, but it's not as a creator. It's a person like a mentor, a person you want to become like. It's not an unreasonable thing, and we'll discuss this. So maybe we don't have that feeling much now. Maybe we haven't got much confidence in the Buddha as a doctor, but we start somewhere, you know. So we visualize the Buddha above our heads, this particular Buddha. We'll go into it. And then we would formally do a little prayer or whatever, remind ourselves of our reliance upon the Buddha and his methods. That's the first part of the second step, called reliance. So curiously, the second part of reliance is called compassion. So you think, what's compassion got to do with relying upon? Well, the way they talk in Tibetan is interesting. They say, you know, in the second step, we're trying to now cultivate compassion for others. This is the second one. You've got to have the first one first for yourself. Now we can think of those we have harmed and have compassion, empathy for them, and want to purify ourselves for their sake. So why is compassion under the heading reliance? Well, the way they talk, they use this kind of concept. They say, you know, here we are trying to cultivate compassion. So if you think about it, what do you need in your life to get compassion? What you need is suffering people. So you don't want them to suffer, but you could say you rely upon suffering sentient beings. You need suffering sentient beings. Otherwise, how could you have compassion? If you never meet a suffering sentient being, you can't possibly have compassion. So just the way they talk, we rely upon, meaning you've got to have suffering people in order to get compassion. It's an odd way to put it, but perhaps you can hear the logic of it. So it's in this second part, then we would now think about those sentient beings we have harmed. In particular, ones that we can remember, you know, particular ones today or yesterday or whatever. And then think of any of the sentient beings we have harmed in the past. Must purify myself for their sake. I know what suffering is like, so I know how they're feeling. Having compassion, empathy with their suffering. You know. Now, if we're really brave, we can also have compassion for those who have harmed us. And that, you know, maybe we're not ready for that. Maybe we're still so hurt and got so much pain and hurt from the person who's harmed us. We're not ready for that. But if we can, this is amazing. And why would we have compassion for the person who's harmed us? Because they will suffer for the harm they have done. Because we're all in the same boat. We're all, you know, going to experience the fruits of our negative actions and our positive ones. So for this reason, we have compassion even for those who have harmed us, because they will suffer for the harm they have done. That's the basis of compassion. Not the victim one, not the innocent victim one. So then we go to the third step, where we put our money where our mouth is. We take the remedy, we take the medicine. We do we actually now visualize the Buddha, this particular Buddha, and we do this visualization of certain purification, you know, nectar coming, purifying us, and reciting the mantra of Vajrasattva, which we will do. And if you haven't done it, you can just listen to it, or you can slowly learn the mantra. That's in the practice, which is all in your notes. All the practice is here. You know, the summary of the practice. I mean, it's short, the one here on page 51. We'll go into more detail. I'll do it more slowly, but it's all there. But the entire practice we're going to do is on page 51. But I will guide you through it. It's best if you just meditate on it, I think. We don't have a sadhana or anything. We'll just be visualization. I'll guide you through it. And we'll do it in more detail, go more slowly, you know. So we do that one. And then the fourth step, as Pabonka Rinpoche says, is the most important. And that's where we make its resolve. We make the determination to change. All these four opponent powers are also described in the teaching on page 2. How we create karma and how to purify it. There's quite a lot there. It's a bit rough transcript, but it's okay. It's in detail about karma, like we've been talking, and we'll go into more detail, and this process of the 4 steps and how we purify. That's all on page 9. So it's good you study all those in between the sessions. So the 4th step, the most important, as Pabonka Rinpoche says, is this determination to change. And this is how we make changes. Now, if you think again, if we think of ordinary things that we know about, like when you're learning how to cook, you're learning how to play piano, because it's not caught up with guilt and morality and all the dramas we have, it's very straightforward. You first learn to know what to do. Then if you make a mistake, you don't go and kill yourself because you made the cake bad. You learn, you regret your mistake, you learn about your mistake and think, what can I do to change it, don't you? And then when you do the 4th step, you make a determination, I better be careful, I won't do that mistake again. That's how you learn something. That's how you become a musician or anything else you like. And we know about this process. But because when it comes to this morality stuff, we get all this drama around it. And so it's so painful for us. We see we're so heavy and self-hating and miserable. And people think people hate us and I'm bad and blah, blah, blah. It's just so tortured, you know. But if we understand it technically, logically, what we're trying to do is really wholesome. It's really logical. It's really reasonable. So the 4th step is very sensible. It's when you make a decision to change. We all know until you say, I will do this, you won't do it. I mean, I think like last year, I decided, for years and years, when I did martial arts quite a few years ago, I got kind of fat. I got fit, fit, right? And healthy. And then as soon as I stopped martial arts, I got fat again. But every now and again I think, I must go on a diet, Well, 27 years later, I'm still saying I must go on a diet. You know what it's like. I must go. And then last year I decided I will. I went on a special diet called eating less. So I lost 12 kilos. But it's obvious, you know, when I decided I will, and I worked out which diet to go on, eating less, 500 calories, I've got very low metabolism. Then I lost 12 kilos. It was so simple. You get my point. So we get very confused about being I should and I would and if only and if I could and I will. So this decision at the end here is I will. Because that's intention, and intention is karma, and that is what guides us in the direction we want to go. So this fourth step is the determination to not do certain things again. So we all know our faults, we all know our weaknesses, you know, if you like, whatever. So let's say you're addicted to eating too much. I mean, it doesn't come into the 10 non-virtues. You don't say, you know, there's one called eating too much. But we all know the things we do that harm ourselves. Maybe it's one of the things you regret, your attachment to food. You know, you can say like that. We can have that one. It's not listed in the 10 things. It's usually harming others. But we can see the things that harm ourselves, just ourselves, following our attachment, following our jealousy, following our rubbish, you know. We can make decisions. We make decisions. So you give yourself a timeline. You don't say, I will never eat too much again. Or you don't say, if you're still, you know, if you haven't really ever thought about not killing, maybe you've never thought about not killing. So maybe it's a bit much to say, I will never kill again. You're not ready for that. You might just think, okay, this is the fourth step when you say it. We'll go through it. You'll see. You might go, okay, I'll think about not killing. You slowly go towards it. Maybe you can't say, I won't stop saying bad things about people behind their backs because it's a very old habit you've got. You don't lie to yourself, as Lama Zopa says. But if you are ready to say, I will never badmouth people again behind their backs, then you say that. You be realistic. Otherwise, you give yourself a timeline. And it's it sounds like kind of boring, you know. It's like so small because we're usually full of guilt and shame and I shouldn't do it again and I'm so bad and I should go on a diet. Instead of this, we've got to pull ourselves together and make decisions because that is what makes us do things. We all know that. I mean, I won't, you know, until I have the thought, I will walk out the door. I won't get off this seat, believe me. My legs don't have their own little brains that'll pick me up and walk me out the door in spite of what I'm thinking. I'm not sitting here thinking, I'm sitting here, I want to sit in the chair and my legs get me up. No way. My mind has to say, I'll walk out the door. It's sort of obvious, but we so don't notice it. It's the decision, the intention. That's the meaning of karma. So we've got to pull ourselves together and make some new intentions. And this is how you change. We all know this. I will go to the gym. I will do this. I will study that. I will go there. I will stop killing. I will stop lying. It's very simple, but we've got to take it one baby step at a time and be realistic because it's not going to suddenly magically happen overnight. You know, you've got to do it. You've got to reiterate it every day. This is how you change. It's so practical, you know, instead of all the drama we have inside us. And we have to be brave in the process of saying, I will never kill, I won't this. You're going to fail. You're going to have to pick yourself up again, you know, and then you fall down again, and then you pick yourself up again, and you just keep moving every day. So these 4 steps are really so healthy. It's acknowledging the rubbish we've done, just accepting, not guilt, not shame, just acknowledging that I'm sick of this habit. I'm sick of suffering. I regret it from the depths of my heart because I don't want this suffering. I'm sick of it. We know we're sick of suffering. The second one is reliance, and then compassion for those we've harmed. Think of them. Then the actual practice of purification, and then the 4th step, the decision to change. And we do it slowly, incrementally, gradually. It's such a practical, necessary teaching, I tell you, practice to do every single day. It's so practical because you're being your own friend, basically. You know, we're so addicted to having other people praise us. This is one of the worst attachments we have. Our deepest attachment, we'll go into this when we talk about attachment in more detail, the deepest attachment we have is to having a good reputation, to be seen as a good person. We're desperate for this. This is what we are craving more than anything. And so therefore we're desperate not to be criticized. So we mainly see our goodness and badness in those terms, in a dualistic way. But here it's private. It's you being your own best friend, you being your own therapist, you growing up, you taking responsibility, not anybody else's business. And this takes time, girls. This takes time. Because if we think people love me and I'm a lovely person, we don't care what bad things we do because people love me. It's only when we get nervous and things go bad that I get rejected that we feel freaking out and miserable and nervous, you know. We need to become our own friend. And what this practice is about that. We're the boss, nobody else. And it takes time, I tell you. Any questions before we do the practice? Okay, let's just do it. Relax, close your eyes. Just relax, okay? Relax, close your eyes, be normal. I will guide you through, and we'll just do it according to your capacity, okay? Maybe, just as you'll see. So relax, get your body, I'll just go through the 8 or the 7, a few main points that the way they all say traditionally the body should be when you meditate. We'll go into detail about what meditation is later. I'll describe it, different times of meditation. But really, the word meditation, actually, before we do it, the word meditation in Tibetan is very interesting. It's very simple. It's quite interesting. We have so many concepts that we think meditation is. But this word is the verb to familiarize. And what meditation means, actually, therefore, is that you're familiarizing your mind with two things, with that which is virtuous and that which is true. We'll discuss this a lot. Buddha talks a lot about reality, So that's what we're trying to do. And there's different kinds of meditation, obviously. This one is using analysis, if you like, as well as visualization. Some meditations where you practice just focusing the mind. But the reason you do the focusing is so you can do the analysis and the visualization better. That's all. Because this is where the work is. Focusing the mind just gets you started. It's like honing and sharpening the knife. So now you've got to do something with it. And that's where you familiarize your mind with these different things. Okay, so the body doesn't meditate, but it's really necessary to have it in a conducive position. In the long term, when we really become serious practitioners, we need to access more subtle levels of our mind, which are necessarily beyond the physical. But because of this intimate relationship, and the way they talk in Tantra, this intimate relationship between our subtle physical energy, the channels, the kundalini energy, the wind energy, all these different components of the subtle physical body. Because of the intimate relationship between this and the way the mind works, it is crucial to have the body in a particular position, and we notice it as we get more advanced meditation. And in the long term, His Holiness says, you need to actually sit in what they call full lotus position. All the subtler physical energies are nicely aligned then, so that the mind can really do what it has to do. So if you can't, he says, even just to start your session, just for a second in full lotus position, it's really auspicious and sows the seed for being able to do it in the future. So if you can't sit full lotus, you have one leg on the other thigh. If you can't do that, ordinary cross-legged. If you can't do that, you're in a chair, whatever you can do, So that's the legs. The next one is the hands. So different ways are taught. Sometimes you hear about the yogis putting their hands up on their knees. Sometimes, like this is the traditional one we first learned. You have your hands in the meditation mudra or gesture. The left one on your lap, away from your body. The left underneath, right on top, and the thumbs touching. And I've heard something about a couple of subtle channels at the tips that meet at the tips of the thumbs related to bodhicitta. That's what I've heard somewhere. So in your lap like this. And the main one is your back. They say you think of your spine like an arrow pointing directly into the earth. The coccyx is the arrowhead. Absolutely straight, ramrod straight. And they also say to keep your shoulders very square and straight. Well, I like to think of your whole body, like all your skeleton. Think of it as like hanging on a hanger, ramrod straight, absolutely straight. And then all the flesh and the soft bits hanging very relaxed. So no tension, in other words, in your muscles, completely relaxed, like your abdomen, relax the muscles. Shoulders, relax the muscles, but your skeleton is upright. So it's a nice combination between upright and relaxed. That's the best way. The next thing is your head. 3 bits about the head. Best to have it slightly tilted forward. The chin tucked in a bit. Otherwise, if the head is thrust back, it makes the mind more agitated. Slightly tilted forward, just a little bit. The jaw should be relaxed, and interestingly, the lips slightly apart. And then the tip of the tongue, oddly, but there's a practical reason for it, the tip of the tongue resting behind the top teeth, just near the palate. Apparently, when you meditate a lot, this stops the dribble, stops you dribbling. Tip of the tongue behind the top teeth, lips apart, breathing through your nose. Then your eyes, all the meditators say, if you're seriously meditating, you meditate in the day and the night, then it's really good to have the eyes open, because that lets the light in and that keeps the mind sharp. And we'll go into this in detail later, but one of the biggest obstacles is as soon as we close our eyes, of course, we nod off to sleep, But if we if we don't have enough focus and we get too distracted having our eyes open, then have them closed, it's okay. But have them maybe slightly open at the end. You'll find the way that works best for you. But whatever you do, have your eyes looking down, as if you're looking along your nose at the ground. It's important your eyes aren't in the back of your head. The eyeballs down. So you set it into this position now. The legs, the back, the shoulders, the hands, the head, the chin, the tongue, the lips, the eyes. Just set it into this in a very unself-conscious way. Now for about 1 minute, a really good focused minute, we're going to just focus all our attention onto the air coming in and out of your nose, just for a minute. And we take complete deep breaths all the way down to your abdomen. They shouldn't be loud or forced. Just 3 or 4 deep breaths all the way to the abdomen, but just bring all your attention just to the nose, to the tip of the nose, just to focus on that. Feel the air go out. Feel the air at the abdomen. Okay, so now let's start with these 4 steps. So the first one is regret. So I'm going to say a few things, and you think the ones you want to think. Otherwise, you don't think it. So we're going to regret things that we have done with our body and our speech that harm others. So we'll go through the list of things in this checklist and see if they apply to us. So killing. Killing means taking the life of a sentient being, a mind possessing. So perhaps it's been the fishing, the mosquitoes, the mice, the baby. The creatures, whatever, So maybe the fleas, the ants, all the creatures. So thinking, if you're ready to, think, I regret killing any sentient being. Why? Because I don't want the karmic seeds, the seed that I planted in my mind when I did those actions based on attachment or laziness or aversion or fear. I don't want those seeds to ripen as my suffering in the future. I don't want that, because why? I'm sick of suffering. And I know that. I know now I don't want to get killed. I don't want to get sick. I don't want to be harmed by others. I know this. So I don't want that in the future. And if you can think of it having suffering rebirth like animals or something, I think I don't want that. This is the reason. It's like why you regret eating the poison, because you don't want the future suffering. So I regret having killed, because I don't want the karmic consequences to myself of this, because I'm sick of suffering. Any killing I've ever done, all the killings I don't remember, and even since beginningless time, all the countless past lives, the killing I've done, as animals. Buddha would say we've been animals countless lives. And there we do the most killing. All those imprints in my mind, all those seeds that haven't yet ripened. No way do I want them to ripen as my suffering. I am sick of suffering. So I regret this clearing from the depths of my heart. For my sake. So then all the stealing, stealing, sexual misconduct, the other two main ones of the body. We misuse our bodies because of our attachment, cheat on partners, maybe manipulate others because we're attached to, these things. Or the taking of things that don't belong. It can be very tricky these days with computers and things. So really be sincere. I regret any sexual misconduct, the cheating on partners, the misusing of my energy to harm others, and anything I've taken that has not been offered to me. Even just out of a laziness of not returning the book and not returning the pencil. Little things, not to mention bigger things. Anything I've ever taken that wasn't offered to me. Taking the ungiven, as Ramazopa calls stealing. I regret, from the depths of my heart, any of these negative actions that I have done since the beginning of this time. If we can think of ones in particular, that's good. Because these seeds have gone in my mind, and I don't want them to ripen as my suffering. I don't want to be poor in the future. I don't want to be stolen from in the future. I don't want to not have my debts paid in the future. I don't want my relationships to, collapse and be cheated on, and my relationships break in the future, which is the result of sexual misconduct. I don't want this suffering. I know that. So I regret these actions to any sentient being from the depths of my heart. So now the actions of our speech, which maybe is what we do most, saying things that aren't true. So, often I think we mightn't actually consciously lie. Here we're discussing lying, one of the four. But we often speculate, rabbiting on, acting like we know what we're talking about, saying things as if we think they're true, misleading people, speculating. This is not technically lying, but I think it's because we're also intelligent and educated. We do this such a lot. So think, all the words I've said that haven't been true, that I haven't checked my sources, that mislead people. We know how confusing it is when people tell us wrong things, especially real outright lying. And then all the anxious, worry, just blah, 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 this neediness just to talk. You see it with some people, just endless rubbish coming out of their mouth, uncontrolled talk. I don't want the consequences of that, to be not taken seriously, to have people groan when I start to talk. I don't want that suffering, no way. All the harsh speech. We know what it's like to hear people shouting and abusive words, how painful it is. All of this. I don't want that kind of experience. And all the talking behind backs, which means creating division, basically. Especially among families, friends, work. Usually that's where it is. Terrible divisions created by talking about each other behind backs. We do this almost like it's a virtue. So terrible. And we know how painful it is to be the recipient of this. We know that suffering is unbearable. There's no way I want these sufferings from these things. I regret these four kinds of actions with my speech, the way we harm others with my speech. I regret from the depths of my heart, because I do not want the future suffering. So let's just briefly regret all of our painful old, mental habits that harm us, just us. The anger, the resentment, the jealousy, the fears, the low self-esteem, the depression, the hurt, the poor me, all of this stuff chatting away on our heads. Look at the pain it causes me. I'm so sick of this rubbish. Sick of it. It causes me to do things to harm myself. Just me, not others. Sick of it. Which, of course, is the basis of then why I do things to harm others. I'm sick of all this. I regret all this from the depths of my heart. Sick of these habits. Sick of that attachment. Sick of all that stuffing the food in the mouth. All the worries, all the fears, all the anxiety, all the low self-esteem. Sick of it. I regret from the depths of my heart. I don't want these habits. So then those of us who've got vows, if we've become Buddhists, we've taken vows. For example, our Purify vows, our Vajrasattva vows, our Tantric vows, our Samadhis, those things. Absolutely, from the depths of our heart we think, I regret having broken any of my commitments, any of my word of honor, any of my vows. From the depths of my heart. I do not want the future suffering. I don't want to be, disconnected from the Dharma. I don't want to lose contact with my teachers and with the Buddha. So I regret this from the depths of my heart. So whom can we turn to? Where's the doctor? So the second step, reliance. So we're thinking of the Buddha. He's our doctor. He has the methods that we can use to purify ourselves. So we visualize above our heads the Buddha. So think of enlightened energy, totally blissful, clear, compassionate, wise, enlightened mind, energy, consciousness, in this form of this blissful, radiant Buddha, in the Bodhisattva aspect, sitting on a lotus, on a white lotus. He's sitting in full lotus position. Can you imagine? Above our heads. He's sitting in full lotus position, his right leg in front of his left, in this Bodhisattva style, this Indian aristocratic style, very gorgeous. Everything's made of light, so beautiful. He's so gorgeous, so handsome, so beautiful. And they say all these Buddhas are in the aspect of youth, like 16 years old. They're totally gorgeous, make your mind very happy. He's sitting in full lotus position. In his left hand, he's holding a bell, which is the wisdom wing that represents wisdom. That's in his lap, the bell. His right hand is at his heart, and he's holding what's called a Vajra, or a Dorje. This is like indestructibility. And you could say this represents compassion. And wisdom and compassion together, that's Buddha. And his radiant white light, blissful, his face so beautiful. He's above your head. You think of him thinking of you, loving you, wanting only to benefit you. This enlightened being, this Buddha. If you have a spiritual teacher, a lama, a guru, then, from your own familiarity with this, you think, this is my lama, manifesting in this aspect for my benefit, solely for my benefit, full of love and compassion for me, wanting only for me to purify my mind so I can become my Buddha. If you have that relationship with a lama, you feel that. And maybe you feel you want a spiritual teacher, but you're not sure who it is, and you think that they're out there twiddling their thumbs, waiting for you to recognize them. And meanwhile, they're manifesting as Vajrasattva for your benefit, to help you, full of this infinite love and compassion for you, only wanting to help you. That's the job of Buddha. So in the Bodhisattva aspect, you see his hair, like you see in the pictures, the hair partially held up in a top knot, decorated beautifully with jewels and things like you see in the pictures. And the rest of his hair down his back, crystal clear, black hair. And then decorated with all the beautiful jewelry, as you see in the pictures. The ears, the upper arms, the wrists, the throat, feet. Gorgeous, beautiful jewels, beautifully decorated. The energy here is to kind of make us blissful. The energy of seeing Shakyamuni Buddha is to calm the mind down, to steady the mind, to control the body, speech, and mind. Here, it's more blissful, trying to be blissful. which activates love and compassion. So this Buddha is sitting above our heads, only wanting to help us, full of love and compassion for us, radiant white light, representing the energy of all the Buddhas in the universe. So we think, the extent that we have this refuge, if we've done it before, if we have a relationship with the Buddha, we think, if we haven't, maybe we think we're going to begin to. So delighted to find a doctor who has methods, who has medicine that I can use to help me transform my mind, to help me become my Buddha. How marvelous. So now we think of sentient beings. We have to cultivate compassion now. We rely upon suffering sentient beings. Those we've harmed first. If we think of those who are more recent, we know, or those, from earlier in our life we harmed, we feel bad about. We think of them, we visualize them, we imagine them. And then we can think of all as well, any of the sentient beings that we don't remember having harmed, and whom we've harmed. Those we've killed, lied to, stolen from, badmouthed, harmed in any way. Absolutely, I must purify myself for their sake. I know what suffering's like, so I know how they feel. Must purify myself for this. If I don't do it, who will? All these countless sentient beings, over countless lives. I must purify them for myself, for their sake. So now we think of those sentient beings who have harmed us, if we can think this. So if we understand karma even a little bit, we know we've had past relationships. I must have harmed them in the past, otherwise it's not possible for me to even meet them again, to have them harm me. So I have to take responsibility even for this. So therefore only to have compassion for them. Because they will suffer for the harm they've done to me, from their resentment and their anger and their hurt and their bitterness. That's only going to harm them. It's like a compassion that a mother has for a child. That junkie kid, everybody else hates him. But her heart breaks because she sees that he's harming himself. All these suffering sentient beings, harming themselves. If I don't help them, who will? So now the third step, we imagine, we take the remedy now, we do the visualization. So we imagine first, we do different levels of the purification. First of all, we're going to purify all the actions of negativity done with our bodies. So imagine you're sitting above your head. So think of him quite high above your head. So then you imagine he sends very happily, Vajrasattva, from his heart, in the center of his chest, his heart chakra, very powerful, like a hose of energy, this white nectar, so intense, but it arcs around and enters into your crown very forcefully, like a huge hose of energy. And it forces out, you imagine, this powerful white nectar whooshing through you and forcing out through all the lower parts of your body, all the imprints of all the harm you've ever done since beginningless time with your bodies as filthy liquid. It forces it all out and whooshes it out, and it disappears into space. Not one atom left. All the imprints of all the harm you've done with your body, like filthy liquid, this white, powerful nectar whooshing through you, coming from Lama Vajrasattva's heart. As we visualize that so strongly, delighting in this, wanting this, as we recite just 3 times the long mantra. And if you know it, you join in. If not, just listen and you can learn it slowly. But visualize. It's important to remember the visualization. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopatita Dido Me Bhava Sutokayo Me Bhava Supokayo Me Bhava Anurakto Me Bhava Sarva Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sawa Kama Sutsa Me Sitam Shriyam Kuruhum Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopatita Dido Me Bhava Sutokayo Me Bhava Supokayo Me Bhava Anurakto Me Bhava Sarva Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sawa Karma Sutsa Me Sitam Shriyam Kuruhum Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopatita Dido Me Bhava Sutokayo Me Bhava Supokayo Me Bhava Anurakto Me Bhava Sarva Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sawa Karma Sutsa Me Sitam Shriyam Kuruhum Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe. Full of this nectar, not one atom left of all the negativity of body. Imagine how marvelous. Disappeared into space. And now Lama Vajrasattva so kindly this time sends this nectar from his heart and arcs around this hose of energy that enters our crown very forcefully. This time it forces up to the surface, to the top of your body, all the imprints of any harm you've ever done with your speech. The harsh speech, the lying speech, the bad mouthing behind backs, and all the rabbiting on. All this negativity of speech, the terrible suffering we've caused because of our mouth. Forced up by this nectar filling us, this filthy liquid, and it all leaves through the top part of our body, all through the top orifices, disappearing into space. Not one atom left. How amazing. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopatita Dido Me Bhava Sutokayo Me Bhava Supokayo Me Bhava Anurakto Me Bhava Sarva Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sawa Karma Sutsa Me Sitam Shriyam Kuruhum Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopatita Dido Me Bhava Sutokayo Me Bhava Supokayo Me Bhava Anurakto Me Bhava Sarva Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sawa Kama Sutsa Me Sitam Shriyam Kuruhum Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopatita Dido Me Bhava Sutokayo Me Bhava Supokayo Me Bhava Anurakto Me Bhava Sarva Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sawa Kama Sutsa Me Sitam Shriyam Kuruhum Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe. Full of this nectar. All the negativity of speech disappeared into space. Not one atom left. How amazing. And now our mind, more subtle, all the thoughts, all the neuroses, which are the basis of the harm we do with our body and speech, the cause of all suffering. So we imagine now from Lama Vajrasattva's heart, he sends this time beams of light, like laser light. I don't know if laser light can arc around, but never mind. Imagine it arcing around, okay? Coming from his heart, arcing around, and then hitting your crown, entering you instantaneously. Just as a light, when you turn, as Lama says, when you turn on a light in the room, instantly the darkness is dispelled, isn't it? Same here. Instantly. All the negativities, all the delusions, the neuroses, the ego grasping, the root of the problem, the vast attachment of neediness, the anger, the resentment, the jealousy, the hurt, the depression, the low self-esteem, the pain, the pride, the arrogance, all these painful, painful states of mind. Instantly annihilated by this radiant, blissful, white-like feelings. How marvelous. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Dido Mebawa Sutokayo Mebawa Supokayo Mebawa Anurakto Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Meplayata Sarva Karma Sutsame Sitam Shriyam Kuruhum Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasama Sattva Ahum He Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Dido Mebawa Sutokayo Mebawa Supokayo Mebawa Anurakto Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Meplayata Sarva Karma Sutsame Sitam Shriyam Kuruhum Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasama Sattva Ahum He Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Dido Mebawa Sutokayo Mebawa Supokayo Mebawa Anurakto Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Meplayata Sarva Karma Sutsame Sitam Shriyam Kuruhum Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasama Sattva Ahum He. So now we imagine that we've purified, actually, as they call it, all the obstacles to our own liberation, our own realizations of the truth and freedom from suffering. But we now need to purify even more, even the subtlest imprints, all the obstacles to omniscience, as they call it, which are preventing us from being a fully enlightened Buddha. So this time, it seems a bit busy, but do your best. You visualize all three together. From Lama Vajrasattva's heart, he sends us nectar, and we see it all going down and leaving through the lower orifices, all going up, leaving to the top, and the light coming as well, together. And this is removing even the subtlest imprints of all this negativity, all the obstacles to our own Buddhahood. Imagine this, as we say now. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Dido Mebawa Sutokayo Mebawa Supokayo Mebawa Anurakto Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Meplayata Sarva Karma Sutsame Sitam Shriyam Kuruhum Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasama Sattva Ahum He. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Dido Mebawa Sutokayo Mebawa Supokayo Mebawa Anurakto Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Meplayata Sarva Karma Sutsame Sitam Shriyam Kuruhum Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasama Sattva Ahum He. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Dido Mebawa Sutokayo Mebawa Supokayo Mebawa Anurakto Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Meplayata Sarva Karma Sutsame Sitam Shriyam Kuruhum Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasama Sattva Ahum He. Even the subtlest imprints of all the negativity gone completely. So now the fourth step, the determination to change, resolve. So let's just think, about actions of the body and speech, and then the mind. If we can think, If we can think, let's say we've already taken vows never to kill, then it's easy for us to think this. I will never kill again. We must think this. If you've taken vows, so we'll do this one first for those who've taken vows. If you've taken vows, which are lifelong, then you must reiterate, I will never kill. I will never lie. I will never steal. I will never break my bodhisattva vows. I will never break my tantric vows. You must say this because you took them for life anyway. So we need to say this very clearly. If you have taken vows, strongly. And if you know in your mind you've broken them, then you are reiterating here, I will never break them. And it's this determination every day Naturally, if you make a determination today, and that'll protect you tomorrow, and then you do it again tomorrow night, and that'll protect you for the next day. It's obvious, it's incremental, it grows like this. This is how it works. If you take vows and then 27 years later think, oh yeah, I'm a Buddhist, I took a vow one day, and you don't practice it, well, obviously it's weak. It hasn't sustained you. It's like doing push-ups. You get better at it every day. So, in your mind, those of you who've taken vows can do that. So in your mind, if you haven't taken vows, and maybe you're ready to say, I will never kill. But maybe you're prepared to say, okay, I'll give it a go. Or I won't kill for a day. Maybe even during the retreat, you decide, for 24 hours, I will not consciously kill a living being. If you can say more than that, like a month or a year, or maybe you can say, I will never kill. Maybe that's a fundamental decision you can make. I will never, and that means intentionally kill. We kill all the time accidentally, but intentionally. When you see a creature there, you don't care, and you do it. So if you can consciously say, I will never kill, I will never lie, I will never steal, I will never indulge in sexual misconduct, I will never badmouth, I will never rabbit on about nothing. If you can, how marvelous. But otherwise, you give yourself a timeline. It's very serious. This is what we do every day with our body and speech that harms others, isn't it? Be brave. Just think for a moment about actions of body and speech, what you can accomplish according to your own capacity. And you make a decision to yourself, a reasonable decision to yourself. And those of you with vows, you talk to yourself about these. Just for a couple of minutes. And then our minds, we do our best, We know our minds is running like crazy. Impossible to say, I won't be angry again, I won't have jealous thoughts again. But we look at the ones that are our old habit, and with confidence and with kindness towards ourselves and determination, we make some decisions. I'll watch my mind. I'll try not to, when the jealousy starts, I'll try and stop the story. Just whatever we think we can accomplish with our old rubbish mental habits. Just talk to ourselves. Make some decisions. Realistic decisions. Don't lie to ourselves about what we can accomplish. So now, Lama Vajrasattva is very delighted. You imagine that he just dissolves into white light. And he comes through your crown and merges with your body, speech, and mind. Imagine Buddha's body, speech, mind, Lama's body, speech, mind, my body, speech, mind. Same thing. It's feeling full of this blissful energy of Buddha and the Lama. No thoughts, this kind of space out, this feeling of vast, spacious, clear. then we think we're going to pop up and watch our body and speak. No speech, just watch our body, try to harm sentient beings. Watch our minds every moment. That's the idea of retreat. It's an internal process. Observe the mind. And let us now offer our lunch. Think of lunch as this delicious nectar of the bees of the universe that blessed with the energy of all the Buddhas. On my home, on my home, on my home. We think of offering it to all the Buddhas, all the holy beings, all the suffering sentient beings pervading space. And we think, if we could, we would offer to them. And then we think of all of them experiencing the pleasure of receiving this delicious nectar. Lama Sandhi Nama Chura, Deja Nama Girante, Kungi Depo Lama Te, Lama Nama Chura, Papo. And we eat with a very happy mind, so that we can be fat and healthy, so we can continue working on our minds, so we can be a benefit to sentient beings. Okay.